Hawaii. To many, the very word conjures visions of paradise. White sands glowing under the sun, turquoise waves curling into perfection, and the warm rhythm of island life carried by the ocean breeze. It is the ultimate postcard, the dream destination that seems untouched by fear or shadow. But when the sun sets and the trade winds begin to howl through the valleys, the islands reveal another face, one that locals know all too well, and one that tourists rarely expect. Because Hawaii is not just paradise. It is also a place of ancient spirits, unbroken curses, and mysteries that cling to the land like salt on the shore. There are roads no one dares to drive after midnight, beaches where laughter is silenced by unseen eyes, and cliffs where whispers rise with the mist. It is a land where the past and the present collide, where the beauty of the islands hides something much darker. Tonight, we're going to journey into that darkness. We will peel back the layers of paradise and uncover the stories that locals tell in hushed voices, warnings meant to protect outsiders from forces they may not understand. From phantom warriors marching under the moonlight, to cursed highways, to ghosts who wait for the careless, these are the chilling mysteries of Hawaii that locals warn tourists about. But before we step into the shadows, make sure you are ready. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and join us as we uncover stories that will chill your blood and leave you questioning whether Hawaii is truly the paradise you think it is, or a haunted land guarding its secrets. To understand the mysteries of Hawaii, you must first understand its history. Long before tourists arrived with cameras and leis, the Hawaiian Islands were home to an ancient culture bound by sacred laws and spiritual beliefs. Every stone, every wave, every gust of wind was connected to the gods. The land itself was alive, and to disrespect it was to invite disaster. Hawaiian society was governed by the kapu system, a strict code of conduct that dictated everything from what foods could be eaten, to where people could walk, to who could even gaze upon a chief. Breaking kapu was not a small mistake, it was an offense punishable by death, often carried out immediately. Imagine living in a world where stepping into the wrong shadow could cost you your life. These laws created a society steeped in reverence and fear, where the boundaries between the living and the divine were razor thin. This foundation of sacred respect gave rise to countless legends. The people believed that gods walked among them, taking the forms of fire, water, and stone. Spirits lingered in valleys and mountains, bound to the land they once protected. Heroes and tricksters, warriors and demons all existed not as fairy tales, but as truths woven into daily life. Even today, locals treat these legends with care. They are not bedtime stories. They are warnings. Stories of the night marchers, ghostly warriors doomed to march forever across the islands. Tales of Pele, the goddess of fire, whose wrath destroys those who steal from her volcanic home. Myths of the Menehune, the small hidden people who live in the forests, said to punish those who spy on their secret works. For outsiders, Hawaii might appear as a paradise free of fear. But for those who live there, the stories serve as reminders that the islands demand respect. Every cliff, every grove, every stretch of sand has its guardian, and those who ignore the warnings risk much more than a ruined vacation. As we peel back the layers of history, one truth becomes clear: Hawaii's beauty and its darkness are bound together. You cannot have one without the other. And the deeper we go, the more chilling these stories become. Every island holds its secrets, but Hawaii's are wrapped in a silence that feels deliberate, like the land itself is guarding something it does not wish to reveal. Tourists arrive daily, snapping photographs of sunsets and waterfalls, but what they do not realize is that beneath the postcard beauty lies a history etched in blood, fire, and bone. Ask any local, and they will tell you, there are places you simply do not go after dark. Beaches where laughter dies in your throat. Valleys where shadows move against the moonlight. Highways where the air grows heavy, as if the past still lingers in the present. And if you ignore the warnings, you may encounter something you cannot explain. The stories vary: unsolved disappearances of hikers swallowed by the jungle, phantom processions of warriors crossing the land, drivers who vanish without a trace along cursed roads. Each tale has its own detail, its own chilling twist, but they all carry the same thread: a warning not to trespass, not to disturb, not to forget that these islands belong first to the spirits. Tonight, we will dive deeper into these mysteries. We will explore the legends that chill the blood of even the bravest locals. And we will focus on the tales that outsiders often laugh off until they experience them for themselves. The first story takes us into the mountains and valleys of Hawaii, where drums echo without a source, torches burn without fire, and footsteps march without soldiers. This is the legend of the Night Marchers, the Phantom Warriors of Hawaii. The legend of the Night Marchers, or Huakaipa, is perhaps the most terrifying story whispered across the islands. They are not monsters nor demons, but the restless spirits of ancient Hawaiian warriors, soldiers of kings and chiefs condemned to march for eternity. It is said they travel in long processions, moving silently at first, until the sound of drums begins to thunder through the night. Then comes the blowing of conch shells, the rhythmic beat of feet striking the earth, and the flickering glow of torches lighting a path through the darkness. The air grows heavy, the wind dies, and every animal falls silent. Those are the signs the night marchers are near. According to legend, they march to protect sacred ground or to honor great chiefs. But for the living, to cross their path is a death sentence. Witnesses describe feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, as though unseen hands are pressing down on their chest. Some say you can smell decay, others claim the air tastes of iron and blood. But the rule is clear: if you see them, you must not look directly at them. Drop to the ground, face down, and stay silent. Only then might they spare you. The most feared detail of all is their gaze. If a night marcher locks eyes with you, your soul is said to be ripped from your body, dragged into their endless procession. Death follows swiftly, sometimes immediately, sometimes days later, but always without fail. Locals still avoid certain valleys and trails at night, especially during the nights of the full moon. Oahu's Nuuanu Valley, Kauai's Waipio Valley, and the cliffs of the Big Island are among the most feared paths. These are the places where the night marchers are said to rise, retracing their ancient routes. For tourists, the legend may sound like nothing more than a ghost story meant to frighten the curious. But for Hawaiians, it is deadly serious. To mock the night marchers is to invite them. To dismiss them is to tempt fate. And for those who have claimed to encounter them, the memory is something they can never escape. Stories of the night marchers are not confined to dusty legends. They live on in modern times, whispered by locals and sometimes admitted in hushed tones by tourists who return from the islands with far more than just photographs. One account comes from a couple staying at a small rental home near Oahu's Nuuanu Valley. The house sat at the edge of a dense forest, with nothing but a narrow path leading into the trees. On their second night, just past midnight, they were startled awake by the deep, rhythmic pounding of drums. At first they thought it was music from a distant party, but then came the horn's long, mournful blasts carried on the wind. The wife swore she saw flickering lights moving between the trees, torches burning in a straight line. The husband, curious, stepped outside to look. That was when the drumming stopped. The air went completely still. Even the crickets had gone silent. Terrified, he fell to the ground, face first, recalling the warning a local guide had given them earlier in the trip. The next morning, he found faint footprints in the dirt, far too many to belong to just one or two people. Another story comes from a security guard working the night shift at a hotel on the Big Island. The building had been constructed on what was once an ancient trail. Locals had warned the developers, but the warnings were ignored. One night, while making his rounds, the guard reported hearing chants carried on the wind. He turned a corner and froze. A line of glowing torches stretched across the lawn, moving silently toward the sea. He collapsed to the ground, too afraid to even breathe. When he dared to lift his head, the torches were gone, but the grass where he had seen them passing was flattened, as if dozens of feet had trampled it in unison. He quit his job a week later, unable to face another night there. Perhaps the most chilling tale is from a group of hikers on Kauai. They had set up camp in Waipio Valley, despite warnings from locals not to stay overnight. Around 2 a.m., one of them awoke to the sound of heavy footsteps circling their tent. Another described the sensation of heat, as though fire was moving just beyond the canvas walls. Suddenly, the drums began slow at first, then rising in tempo, rattling their bones. One hiker peeked through a small opening in the tent flap and swore he saw a procession of warriors, glowing faintly, their faces painted with rage, moving as one toward the cliffs. The group fled, abandoning their gear, and when they returned days later, their belongings were gone. Only the circle of trampled grass remained. Whether imagination, coincidence, or true encounters, these stories carry the same thread, the sense that the night marchers still roam, their duty unbroken, their presence undeniable. And while tourists might leave with nothing more than a strange story, locals know better. The marchers are not meant to be disturbed. If the night marchers are Hawaii's most feared spirits, then Pele, the goddess of fire and volcanoes, is its most powerful. Revered as both creator and destroyer, she is said to shape the islands themselves with her molten hands. Her temper is legendary, her beauty mesmerizing, and her vengeance swift. To this day, locals speak of her with a mix of devotion and caution. She is not a figure of myth alone, she is a force still felt in every eruption, every rumble beneath the earth. But Pele's story carries with it a chilling warning. It is said that those who dare to steal from her volcanic home, those who pocket stones, sand, or lava rock as souvenirs bring a curse upon themselves. At first, it may seem like harmless bad luck. A missed flight, a sudden illness, a car breaking down without reason. But as the days pass, the misfortunes grow more severe. Businesses fail, relationships collapse, accidents strike without warning. The curse does not relent until the stolen piece of the island is returned. This legend has become so widespread that the U.S. Postal Service in Hawaii regularly receives packages filled with rocks and sand, mailed back by desperate tourists. Some letters inside are desperate confessions, begging Pele for forgiveness. They describe years of relentless bad luck, accidents that seemed too coincidental, tragedies that could not be explained. These packages arrive from all corners of the world, a haunting testimony to the reach of Pele's wrath. One story tells of a family who visited Hawaii and took home several small black rocks from the slopes of Kilauea. Soon after returning home, the father lost his job, the mother was diagnosed with a sudden illness, and their home was nearly destroyed by a fire that started without explanation. When a friend reminded them of Pele's curse, they quickly sent the rocks back with an apology letter. Within months, the streak of misfortune seemed to ease, leaving them convinced that the curse had been lifted. Another tale comes from a young traveler who pocketed a single stone from the edge of a lava field. In the years that followed, his life unraveled. A string of car accidents, financial ruin, and the loss of several loved ones haunted him. Desperate, he finally mailed the rock back with trembling hands, writing in his letter that he only hoped it was not too late. Whether superstition or something far more sinister, the curse of Pele endures. Locals warn tourists every year, respect the land, leave it as you found it, and never take what belongs to the goddess of fire. Those who ignore the warning may find that paradise follows them home, but not the kind they hoped for. Not far from the bustling city of Honolulu lies a lonely, twisting stretch of road known as Morgan's Corner. By day, it looks like nothing more than a quiet bend in the pavement, shrouded in thick trees and creeping vines. But when the sun sinks below the horizon, the atmosphere changes. The air grows colder, the shadows deepen, and silence settles like a heavy shroud. To locals, Morgan's Corner is more than just an eerie detour, it is one of the most haunted places on Oahu. The legend begins decades ago, with the story of a woman who lived near the bend. She was said to be reclusive, her house hidden deep in the thicket of trees. According to whispers, one night she was attacked, strangled by an intruder. Her spirit, restless and furious, was never at peace. Drivers claim to have seen a pale figure standing on the roadside, her face obscured by the night, her body swaying ever so slightly as if suspended by an invisible rope. But that is only one version. Another tale links Morgan's Corner to two escaped prisoners who once hid in the area. Desperate and starving, they stumbled upon a home occupied by an elderly woman. What happened next depends on who tells the story. Some say they killed her in cold blood, others that she died of fright. Either way, her death bound her spirit to the place, and ever since, the corner has been drenched in dread. Those who have driven through Morgan's Corner at night tell of strange occurrences. Engines stalling without cause, headlights flickering, swallowed by the darkness. The sensation of being watched from the trees. Some even claim that as they round the bend, they feel something brushing against their necks, like a rope tightening, leaving them gasping for breath. One chilling story comes from a young couple who parked near the bend late one night. They spoke in hushed voices, nervous but curious, waiting to see if the rumors were true. After several minutes, they heard a scraping sound on the roof of the car. Terrified, they sped away, only to find deep gouges in the paint the next morning, as though claws or nails had dragged across the metal. For others, the horror is not seen but felt. Locals describe an overwhelming sense of dread when passing through, as if an unseen presence presses down on them, warning them to leave. Some refuse to drive the road altogether, choosing longer routes rather than risk encountering what lingers at Morgan's Corner. Whether ghostly woman, lingering spirit of a crime, or something older still, one truth remains. Morgan's Corner is a place where the veil feels thin, where death and fear never seem to fade. Deep in the heart of central Oahu lies the town of Wahiawa, surrounded by thick forests and hidden valleys. It is here, near the Wahiawa Botanical Garden, that one of Hawaii's most unsettling urban legends takes form, the story of the Green Lady. She is said to be a ghostly figure with moss-green skin, long tangled hair dripping with algae, and eyes that glisten like wet stones. Some claim her teeth are jagged, others that her limbs are twisted, as though water itself reshaped her body. The Green Lady does not merely appear, she lurks, waiting in the shadows of the forest, always near bridges and streams, where the mist hangs low and the trees seem to lean inward. Her origins are uncertain, but the most popular tale tells of a woman who once wandered the forest with her children. One by one, the children drowned in the streams that cut through Wahiawa's dense jungle. Consumed by grief and madness, the woman herself vanished, her body never recovered. Locals believe her spirit was transformed, her sorrow and rage binding her to the water and earth, twisting her into the monstrous form of the Green Lady. Those who claim to have seen her tell chilling stories. One boy, decades ago, described a tall figure emerging from the trees near a bridge. Her skin glistened as though soaked, and her breath reeked of stagnant water. When she stepped closer, vines seemed to drag behind her, as though she were part of the forest itself. The boy fled, and when he returned with others, the place was empty but the air still stank of decay. Others insist the Green Lady targets children, luring them toward the water with soft whispers. Parents in Wahiawa often warn their kids not to stray near the streams after dark, not only because of the danger of drowning, but because of the Green Lady's restless spirit. Her presence has become so feared that some locals refuse to cross certain bridges at night, terrified of seeing her glowing eyes staring from the underbrush. There are even tales of cars breaking down near the botanical garden, drivers spotting a damp handprint smeared across their windows, though no one else is nearby. Some claim to hear her dragging footsteps on gravel, moving closer and closer, until the sound suddenly stops right outside their door. The Green Lady is not a story told for amusement. To those who live near Wahiawa, she is a reminder that sorrow and tragedy can cling to a place, taking shape in terrifying ways. And for those unfortunate enough to encounter her, the lush beauty of the garden becomes a prison, with no escape from the creature that lurks within. Winding its way through the lush Ko'olau mountain range on Oahu, the Pali Highway is both breathtaking and deeply unsettling. By day, it offers sweeping views of cliffs and valleys, where the trade winds roar through the pass with unrelenting force. But by night, the highway becomes something else entirely. Locals whisper of strange figures wandering the roadside, phantom hands brushing across steering wheels, and accidents that seem to defy explanation. The highway itself runs near the site of one of Hawaii's bloodiest battles, the Battle of Nuuanu, where in 1795, hundreds of warriors were forced over the cliffs to their deaths during King Kamehameha's conquest of Oahu. It is said that their spirits still linger, restless and angry, bound forever to the valley where their lives were cut short. Some drivers report seeing ghostly soldiers marching along the ridges, their silhouettes vanishing into the mist. Others speak of faces pressed against their windows in the dead of night, gone in an instant when headlights cut through the fog. But the Pali Highway holds another, more peculiar curse, one tied to a superstition every local knows. It is said that if you carry pork across the highway at night, your car will mysteriously stall. No matter how new the vehicle, no matter how strong the engine, it will refuse to move forward. Only when the pork is removed or an offering is made will the car start again. The explanation ties back to Hawaiian mythology, to the conflict between the goddess Pele, who rules fire, and Kamapuaʻe, a demigod often depicted as part man, part pig, who rules the forests. Their feud was fierce, and it is believed that carrying pork, the flesh of Kamapuaʻe, across lands tied to Pele is forbidden. Doing so rekindles their battle, and the land itself intervenes to stop the trespass. Many dismiss the superstition as nothing more than a story, but countless drivers swear by it. One tale tells of a family returning late at night with leftover pork in their cooler. Halfway across the Pali Highway, their car stalled. The father tried everything: ignition, lights, even checking the engine, but nothing worked. Remembering the old legend, he removed the pork and set it on the roadside. Within seconds, the engine roared back to life. Shaken, the family drove away without a word. Others describe stranger encounters. Some claim that when their cars stalled, they heard scratching on the doors, as though claws were dragging across the paint. A few even reported seeing a massive, shadowy pig standing in the road ahead, its eyes glowing red. watching silently before vanishing into the night. To this day, locals warn outsiders, never carry pork across the Pali Highway after dark. Whether myth, curse, or coincidence, too many have experienced the inexplicable for it to be ignored. And when the winds howl through the cliffs and the fog rolls down, the highway itself seems to whisper a reminder: this road belongs not to you, but to the spirits that dwell here. In the dense forests and hidden valleys of Hawaii, whispers tell of the Menehune, a race of small, elusive people who live deep in the wilderness, far from human eyes. To some, they are harmless tricksters, master builders who work under the cover of night. To others, they are far more sinister, guardians of secrets that no outsider should ever uncover. The Menehune are said to stand no taller than 2 feet, their faces weathered like stone, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Legends describe them as skilled craftsmen, capable of constructing massive temples, fish ponds, and walls in a single night. Some of Hawaii's most ancient structures, stoneworks whose origins remain a mystery, are often credited to their unseen hands. But their talents come with a price. They despise being watched. Anyone who spies on their secret labor is doomed to misfortune, or worse. One story from Kauai tells of a young man who claimed he followed faint sounds of hammering deep into the forest one night. Hidden among the trees, he saw dozens of small figures working together, carrying stones larger than themselves, fitting them perfectly into place. Mesmerized, he gasped aloud. The figures stopped. In unison, their heads turned toward him, their glowing eyes piercing the dark. He fled, stumbling through the underbrush, and when he returned home, he was struck by a sudden illness that lasted for weeks. He never spoke of the Menehune again. Another tale describes a group of hikers who found themselves lost in the mountains after sunset. They swore they heard laughter around them, high-pitched and childlike, though no one else was there. Small rocks were thrown from the shadows, and tiny footprints appeared on the trail behind them. When they finally escaped the forest, they discovered their backpacks had been slashed open, their food gone, yet not a single animal track could be found. Though often described as mischievous, the Menehune are not always harmless. Some legends speak of people vanishing after crossing paths with them, never to be seen again. Others warn that the Menehune can curse entire families if disrespected, causing generations of hardship. For this reason, many locals avoid speaking of them openly, afraid to attract unwanted attention. To outsiders, the Menehune might sound like fairy tale creatures, the Hawaiian equivalent of leprechauns or goblins. But the fear they inspire is very real. Ancient sites believed to be their work are still treated with caution, and locals often leave offerings to appease them. Because in Hawaii, the line between myth and reality is not so easily drawn, and in the silence of the forest, when the moon is hidden and the air is thick, you might just hear the faint sound of hammering echoing through the trees. Hawaii's beauty draws millions of visitors each year, but not all who come seek only beaches and luau's. Some arrive chasing the thrill of the unknown, the lure of forbidden places, and the mysteries whispered by locals. They step off the well-lit paths and into the shadows, ignoring warnings that are spoken not out of superstition but survival. This pursuit has given rise to what many call dark tourism, a fascination with places soaked in tragedy, haunted by spirits or bound by curses. Tourists often laugh off the stories. They drive the Pali Highway with pork in their trunks just to test the legend. They pocket volcanic stones, convinced the curse of Pele is nothing more than a marketing ploy. They sneak into valleys said to belong to the night marchers, hoping for a ghost story to take home. But the islands have a way of humbling those who mock their laws. Letters returned to Hawaii tell of vacations that ended in disaster, of families ripped apart by strange streaks of misfortune. Rental cars have been found abandoned on trails where tourists vanished without explanation, their belongings left behind as if dropped mid-step. Some visitors claim to have returned home with scratches across their backs, bruises in the shape of hands, or nightmares so vivid they swear they were dragged back to the island in their sleep. One chilling account comes from a group of college students who decided to camp at Waipio Valley, despite repeated warnings. They laughed off the tales of the night marchers, even staging mock marches in the sand. That night, they heard drums echoing through the valley. By morning, 2 of them were gone. Authorities searched for weeks, but no trace was found. The survivors swore they heard voices calling their names for nights afterward, long after they had left the island. Another tale involves a newlywed couple who visited Hawaii on their honeymoon. Against the advice of a tour guide, they took lava rocks from the slopes of Kilauea as gifts. Within a year, their marriage fell apart, plagued by constant tragedy, lost jobs, accidents, betrayals. Desperate, the wife mailed the rocks back with an apology letter, writing that she now believed Pele had torn their happiness apart piece by piece. These are not stories of coincidence, at least not to those who live on the islands. They are reminders that Hawaii is more than paradise, it is sacred ground, alive with forces that do not forgive carelessness. The price of curiosity, especially when laced with arrogance, can be steep. For some, it is a string of bad luck. For others, it is disappearance. And for a few, it is the haunting certainty that something followed them home, waiting just out of sight. By now, the pattern is undeniable. Every legend, every curse, every whispered warning points to the same unsettling truth: the islands are not passive. They are not just land and sea. They are alive, watchful, and fiercely protective. Those who set foot on Hawaii are not merely visitors, they are intruders in a realm guarded by forces far older and more powerful than themselves. Accounts from across the islands suggest something more terrifying than isolated hauntings. There are nights when entire groups of people witness the same impossible event, as though the island itself is pulling back the veil to remind them who is in control. On one such night, near the cliffs of the Big Island, a group of tourists reported seeing dozens of torches flickering along the ridgeline. They believed they had stumbled upon a festival, until the lights began moving in perfect formation, winding down the cliffs where no human could safely walk. The sound of drums followed, echoing across the valley, so powerful it shook the earth beneath their feet. When they reported the sight to locals, the response was simple: you saw the night marchers, and you were lucky to live. Another chilling story comes from the jungles near Kauai. A team of filmmakers, intent on capturing the raw beauty of the forest, set up cameras deep within a valley said to be sacred. That night, their footage revealed something their eyes had not seen: a procession of small figures darting between the trees, their outlines sharp, their movements swift. The crew dismissed it as a trick of the light, until their equipment began to fail one by one. Batteries drained, cameras shattered from sudden drops, and one crew member vanished for hours, found later wandering aimlessly with no memory of where he had been. And then there are the stories of whispers. Travelers who camp in forbidden valleys often report hearing their names spoken softly, as if carried by the wind. Some wake to find handprints pressed into the walls of their tents, too small to belong to any of their group. Others describe the sensation of eyes watching them constantly, following them back to their hotels, onto their planes, even into their homes thousands of miles away. The culmination of these stories paints a chilling picture. Hawaii is not merely a paradise, but a living entity, one that does not forget. Its spirits march. It's God's curse. Its guardians lurk. And when disrespected, it does not forgive. The land itself seems to watch, waiting, choosing when and how to reveal its power. Perhaps the most unsettling question of all is not whether the legends are real, but whether the islands themselves allow us to see them, or whether they show only enough to remind us who truly rules this paradise. Hawaii wears its beauty like a crown: emerald mountains rising against sapphire seas, sunsets painted in fire and gold. But beneath that beauty lies a kingdom of shadows, where every stone, every tree, every valley holds a story etched in fear. From the relentless march of phantom warriors to the curse of Pele, from haunted highways to the sorrowful Green Lady, the islands are alive with mysteries that refuse to fade. For locals, these stories are not told to entertain. They are warnings, passed down through generations to remind all who live and visit that Hawaii is sacred, that it demands reverence. For outsiders, they may sound like folklore, the kind of tales spun to frighten children. But those who mock them often discover too late that the line between myth and reality is not as clear as they believed. So the question lingers: when you step onto the sands of Hawaii, when you wander into its forests, when you drive its shadowed highways, are you truly alone? Or are you walking among the spirits of warriors, gods, and guardians who watch every step you take? Perhaps paradise is not just a gift. Perhaps it is a bargain, one that demands respect in exchange for beauty. And those who forget the bargain may find themselves paying a price they never expected. If you have ever visited Hawaii, have you felt it, that strange heaviness in the air, the sense that someone is watching you, even when no one is there? Do you believe these are just stories, or are they warnings we would be foolish to ignore? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more tales of dark legends and chilling mysteries, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell, because the next story may be even closer to home than you think.